here we go again with the whole mythical racism blackface stuff.
Well, your principal will probably see this interview. Dad,
I think he's probably going to be he'll let the lawsuit speak for itself, probably.
Is there anything you want to say, though?
Before we talk about this 13-year-old who is actually, let's just say that the principal of the school that he is at is saying that he's guilty of a hate crime. Before we go into this, I want to go back in time just a little bit. I'm going to be leaving at least 1 to 2, maybe all 3 of the videos that I did on Holden Armenta in the description box. Of course, YouTube did not find those videos to be algorithmically friendly, but they're going to be placed in the description box anyways. Holden Armenta was the 9-year-old Chiefs fan, the one that I also said was 5 and then said was 9 again, then said was 5 again, then said was 9 again because of all the conflicting information. He was the Chiefs fan that was attacked by the liberal media, of course, that were there mostly being Deadspin, Karen J. Phillips, of course, is what I like to call the guy. They decided to attack the guy, the kid, over the fact that he had a Chiefs face paint on. He had black and red face paint, and they were accusing him of blackface, and then they said it was a cultural appropriation, only to then find out that the child actually had ties, blood ties to his family, to a local Native American tribe. Of course, they don't tend to look at these sort of things when they make accusations. But let's look at the news report first. We'll get back on the other side. We'll talk about this a little bit further because now there's a 13-year-old kid who just simply wore some, let's just say, the same type of face paint that football players wear. And, of course, now we've got this mess here.
For their son's reputation and record after they say he was accused of wearing blackface to a high school football game. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Carlo Cicchetto.
I'm Marcella Lee. The 13-year-old boy attends Muirlands Middle School. CBS 8's Ariana Cohen talked with the attorney representing the teenager.
The 13-year-old Muirlands Middle School student is referred to as J.A. in order to protect his privacy.
It's just ludicrous.
Today, I talked with attorney Karen Swigart, representing J.A. in this case. In October last year, J.A. wore black face paint to a football game between La Jolla High School and Morse High School. The complaint reads J.A.'s friend painted dark paint on his cheeks, temples, and chin, emulating eye black warrior paint, often displayed by fans and athletes at games. In the complaint filed, it reads the school's principal, Jeff Luna, characterized J.A.'s face paint as blackface. J.A. was suspended from school for 2 days and banned from attending all future school sporting events. In the suspension notice, it's listed as a hate incident with offensive comment and intent to harm.
For them to take an innocent activity of just having, going to a football game and cheering for the other team, and out of nowhere, with no evidence, say that this was a hate crime is just a ridiculous leap in logic. He had never even heard the term. He did not know what blackface was. It was a new concept to him.
In the complaint, J.A.'s parents are seeking the removal of the suspension from his record and are requesting permission for him to attend future games.
There was no disruption at all on campus. There was no disruption at the game. This was a non-event that the school turned into a hate crime. And it's just so overboard and so unnecessary, and you have children getting hurt in the process.
J.A.'s parents are also seeking punitive damages. The next step is to set up a hearing date for a preliminary injunction in the coming months.
As an attorney, I have been dealing with an alarming number of situations, clients calling me with similar things. And these school districts need to stop. They need to stop throwing innocent children under the bus.
We reached out to the San Diego Unified School District and have not yet heard back. Both schools' principals and football coaches have not commented at this time. Ariana Cohen, CBS.
They suspended the boy, and we're finding out that for the most part, they want to suspend him for hateful conduct, or they want to suspend him for the fact that he basically what they're doing is they're giving a 13-year-old an academic hate crime. That's pretty much what they're doing here. I really and truly hate the term hate crime because I think hate crimes actually split us up into smaller groups, and we don't need to be split up. It's funny, too, because, of course, I'm going to be talking about assimilation a little bit more towards the end of the video. So make sure you guys stick around for the full video, because we're not just talking about this incident here. We're talking about why it is these people have this mindset where they have to go after a 13-year-old child who was just simply wearing some face paint. And, of course, that child was obviously with another group of boys who, you will find out later on, didn't seem to care. And, of course, a black security guard even said they need to be a little bit higher up on the face. You probably saw that earlier. Fact of the matter is, the entire situation is completely unwarranted, but we got to go through it anyways. So he's wearing the colors of the team on his face, a lot like what Holden or Menta did. Sounds very, very familiar. I mean, obviously, that case there, it looks like there's going to be a lawsuit in this one, and apparently from what we're hearing now, there's going to be a lawsuit here. So my guess is that somebody may have to pay in this situation, but still at the same time, I think one of the biggest reasons why it is that this right here got as far as it did is because you've probably got a principal who probably never really and truly played sports or never really and truly cared for sports. I mean, football does not exactly appeal to the leftist suburban types. It typically appeals to more working class people. And of course, this right here is another indication of these people being smug, loving the smell of their own farts. But then again, though, who the hell am I to speak? This incident occurred in San Diego, California. Of course, it does not surprise me because, of course, we're now calling it California. Now, the thing about the principal of this school, and there's a lot of speculation out there that the principal was just straight up woke. There's a lot of speculation right now that people think that maybe the principal may have been approached by another person at a football game saying that that little white kid over there with the black face paint on, maybe the spikes, of course, were just a little bit too high. And, of course, the kid, we would find out later on, had black students with him who, quite frankly, did not seem to care. They were actually okay with it. You see, goes back to what I said in the video that I did on Gerard Mayo and his little woke situation, which I'll probably leave in the description box as well. YouTube did not find that video algorithmically friendly for whatever reason. Racism is taught, okay? It's actually taught, okay? And if you just leave the kids alone, they'll figure everything out and they won't be doing any racist type nonsense. Fact of the matter is, you need to just let kids be kids. Now, of course, this kid right here is 13 years old, coming of age, teenagers. I mean, God knows what teenagers actually do, but for the most part, teenagers tend to get along very, very well, especially if you don't get political or tell them things that, quite frankly, they're not ready to learn yet. They typically tend to learn this type of stuff on their own. I've always found that maybe if you allow a child to grow a little bit, typically they won't develop those bad habits that the media constantly reminds us that we have, which of course we really and truly don't, because the vast majority of the racism they're talking about is quote unquote mythical. But here's the thing about this situation. The kid was actually around black students at the time. They did not seem to care about this. So of course some people are going to say, well, maybe the black students are just unaware. Why do you want these students to hate their fellow student? I mean, I'm just asking a serious. I mean, it takes an extreme level of delusion to do this. Now, some people, of course, are looking at the principal and they're saying that the principal was obviously wrong, and a lawsuit, of course, has been filed from what you guys have seen. I think that there are several explanations to this of why it was that the principal acted the way he did, of course, in a very, very woke manner. Of course, I'm doing this video to defend the child and obviously to give you guys some awareness on another very, very dumb story. But I do think that there are explanations of why it is that these people have such high amounts of brain rot. That right there, of course, that is, of course, the woke, the brainwashed, the infected. That right there is who I'm talking about. But before we go any further, let's get to this Fox News segment, which, of course, covers a bit of this. It's going to be intermittent. We're going to stop, start, that type of stuff there. 3 separate clips. Let's go ahead and watch
the black eye paint on his face. And now his family wants the incident expunged from his records. J.A. joins us now, along with his dad, Daniel Amaduri, and their lawyer, Karen Swigert. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you and good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. J.A., I know you live out in California, so thanks for waking up this early for us. Tell us what happened back in October at that football game.
It was a normal day, and everything was normal. No one said anything. It was just a normal football game, and La Jolla won.
So you put black eye paint like the football players do? Because when you look at that picture,
Yeah.
It's all over your face. But Brian, who is a sports enthusiast, my co-anchor, he said this is a lot of athletes actually do that.
Yeah, that was the main point, because I used to go to a lot of football games when I lived in Texas, and I used to play football. And sometimes we'd put that on if one of the kids brought it.
Okay, and no one had a problem with it. In fact, what the security, wasn't there a security guard there who's also, he's a black security guard, and he came up to you and complimented you on it?
Yeah, I asked him how did it look, and he said the spikes need to go higher.
Okay. All right. So, Dad, Daniel, tell us, y'all were having a fun night. A week goes by.
It's a high school football game. There's staff there. There's teachers. There's police, security, nothing. And then the following Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, nothing. Wednesday night, or Wednesday afternoon, the principal called Joseph or J.A. into the office. And then the next morning, my wife and I showed up, and he said he did blackface, and he was suspended for 2 days, and he was going to be banned from sports. And that was when I showed the principal the picture from that night. And I thought that was going to end this whole thing. And then he was like, no, that's blackface.
Wow. So, Daniel, I mean, you know your son, and I read an article last night that said your son had said, I didn't even know what blackface was. I'm in middle school. Can you expand on that a little? Did you know that maybe this would be controversial when you saw the picture, or you saw your son that night?
Two separate clips, but still the thing is this right here. This situation to me just screams dumb. Now, it's very, very possible that the child put the face paint on, and of course, the face paint was just viewed negatively by other parents. Chances are it was actually a white parent who actually had something to say about this and not a black parent. That's really how this works. It's typically always a white Karen or a very, very white suburbanite who tends to say stuff like this, who tends to point this type of thing out. I mean, if you guys remember all the videos during 2020, during COVID, all the mask videos, all the videos where people were getting in trouble over masks, it was typically someone who was white, hence why we call them Karen. It was typically a white liberal or somebody who, quite frankly, was now feeling some sense of power now that they could get away with telling somebody to do something. It was normally somebody who was white. They're not always completely crazy liberal. Some of these people were just deranged. I mean, I know some conservatives or people who I thought were conservative who went fully left when Donald Trump came around just because they wanted to go full left. These people were absolutely deranged. I want to kind of preview that before we actually get to the very, very next segment, which of course is the longer segment. But the thing is this right here. This situation to me screams that you have a principal who, quite frankly, has absolutely no idea what the hell he's talking about. And of course, we're coming after our children. Now, let me say this. I brought up Holden Armenta earlier. Well, there was another student, and I did a video on this right here in Colorado, who got in trouble for a Gadsden flag. Typically, what tends to happen is that these white liberal teachers, they are the ones who tend to complain about this. Now, some of them may think that it could cause a problem, but of course, as I said before, if you just let kids grow, kids typically don't tend to know about stuff like this, where Gadsden flags, blackface, they typically don't tend to know about that stuff there. So, of course, you think ignorance may be bliss. They can learn about it a little bit later on, but after a while, there's normally no negative feelings. If you just allow kids to grow and develop, you're not going to have any of this quote-unquote mythical racism or real racism. It's just the way that it is. It looks, once again, like the liberal media or a bunch of libs are going out of their way to persecute yet another child. But let's watch a little bit more.
Controversial when you saw the picture, you saw your son that night?
I was so convinced that it was going to vindicate him, that picture. I wasn't actually at the game with him. So when I saw that picture, I was so relieved. I was like, wait a minute, this is explainable. And I thought when I showed the principal that would clear the whole thing up, but it didn't, and it only got worse even after I appealed it.
Yeah.
It didn't fix it, and I just couldn't believe it, because anybody who's ever been to a sports game know that this is very normal. And these are kids that were playing hide and seek a few days prior at my house, boogie boarding. Half of the group is our minorities, some of them African American. It's just ridiculous that this would be a racial incident that night.
So, Karen, this happened at the high school football game, after hours, not at school, and then a week later, the principal at his middle school calls him and says, you're suspended for 2 days, and you can't attend any athletic events. And I'd like you to maybe expand on that. Does that mean high school events? Does that mean at middle school? Does that mean just for a few months, for that season, for the fall? And also, tell us about your lawsuit. You're now suing the school or the district?
Because of how constitutional law works, and I won't get into details with that, we're suing the principal directly, the superintendent, and then the people who made the decision to rubber stamp the principal's ridiculous decision to suspend J.A. And there was a recent case just in the last couple years at the Supreme Court where they talked about the out-of-school speech rights that students have to be able to express themselves.
It was to allow America to know that that was not his intent?
I think anybody who's ever been to a football game knows that this was not blackface, and he was with an African-American student that night. The African-American security guard said the spikes need to be bigger. The only people showing absolute racism right now is the school and the school administrators, because there wasn't even a real investigation, to be perfectly honest. When I spoke to the kids involved, they hadn't even been interviewed by the principal. When I showed the principal the picture, he hadn't even seen it.
And it wasn't even an issue, right? I mean, you said no one said a word. A week goes by. Someone must have reported this, and I know you don't know who did.
You've had a security guard. You've had other students, of course, say that they had no problem with this. As a matter of fact, it seems like he was with a group of students who, quite frankly, did not care. You know, I didn't really play much football growing up. Of course, I liked football. I watched football. I didn't really watch it that much this year. I started keeping up with my team, which I thought was an evaluation year. But, of course, we went to the playoffs anyways. But still, at the same time, I didn't really keep up with it much this year. Most NFL football players, most college players, of course, and I talked about this in the Gerard Mayo video, you've got whites, you've got blacks, you've got Hispanics, you've got people of all colors on each team. I mean, go back to the quote from the film, Remember the Titans, if these boys can fight a war together, I'm pretty sure they can actually play together. It's the same exact thing with the schools, and there's something else, too, that needs to be said, and I want to say this right now. For the most part, the people who scream and holler about this the most, as I mentioned before in the previous segment, are, in fact, white people. Now, we haven't actually seen the principal per se, and we don't really know what the hell is up this principal's rear end. But the thing is this right here, if you just let the kids play together, if you just let the kids be kids, chances are this type of thing right here is not going to happen. Of course, there's going to be nothing necessary to, let's put it this way here, it won't be necessary to do this type of stuff. You need to let the actual kids play with one another. That's the biggest reason why it is that somebody decided to say something about this, because probably they thought that the kids should probably be separated. That's the real truth of this entire situation. The whole virtue signaling stuff is nothing more than just a way to say that I'm on your side, when in reality, you're not on their side. That right there is what they're doing. They think that they're being friendly to somebody of color. They think they're being friendly to a black person. They think they're being an ally. But in reality, they're really just complicating things. Which reminds me, I should probably leave this video right here from Patient Zenit in the description box too. Don't always agree with what she's got to say, but she definitely made some very, very good points when it came to the topic of allies. A topic we'll discuss a little bit later on this year in a video essay format. But the thing that you have to understand is that this situation right here screams just pure freaking ignorance from the very start. Now, the fact that the lawsuit has been filed tells me that maybe the principal probably went a little bit overboard, not just with the actual punishment itself, the suspension from school, but also it's very possible that the principal may have also gone over the line in his rhetoric, which we will discuss now. Really quick, when she talked about the free speech policy at the school, I'm pretty sure that what that really is it depends on what you say. Like, you can pretty much say whatever you want as long as it's what we call called for. I mean, obviously, you would not walk to a classroom with FU or something like that in the class when you're 13 years old. I mean, I think some of those rules still obviously are in play. I'm pretty sure that if you walk into class one day with a certain type of offensive type paint, not blackface, but something that may be considered to be offensive as far as clothing or on your face or whatever, I have no idea why you would put it on your face, but I'm pretty sure that that right there is where we're going at with this. Obviously, you can't use profanity in the classroom. You don't want kids to do this. I mean, I had a bad time with that when I was a kid, using profanity in class. Things that could go well for me. And of course, even got in trouble a couple times for saying some pretty nasty stuff because I had a bad attitude when I was a kid. But it seems to me like this right here was an overreach when it comes to this, especially given the fact that it was a football game and class was not in session. I just figure I would throw that out there because obviously when you go back and re-edit these videos, you always find a point that, quite frankly, you missed trying to turn over a new leaf this year. The thing is this right here. This right here was also, as I just said, not in class, but during a game. And of course, they were with their parents. It's almost like when you're a child and you go back to your elementary school for something like, say, fall festival. Typically, you're allowed to wear whatever you want as long as it's not too, I mean, you're with your parents. So obviously, they're going to police that. So this right here seems to me like a situation where a teacher decided that they wanted to go overboard, or it's very possible the teacher just doesn't have an actual understanding of school, teams, mascots, wearing face paint, the same face paint that the team, the same colors of the school itself. I mean, it sounds to me like this principal operated mostly off of ignorance and took the thing a little bit too far. Hence the fact that it's a lawsuit, and the mere fact that it got to court, or it's going to court, tells me that obviously this guy must have been on the much more irrational side. I mean, this is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs land. We are living in a world that, quite frankly, is upside down. Black is white, and white is black nowadays. All kinds of crazy stuff. It's just an insane story. Why in the world would this principal raise 15 counts of hell? Why in the world would this principal be so vigilant over the face paint? Well, here's the thing, all right? I sat down, I thought about this, and back in the earlier days of this channel, I remember when I was doing a little bit more sports content, I remembered that for the most part, sports does not appeal to a leftist audience or to a liberal audience, which also makes you wonder why it is that a parent would say something about this or tell the principal about it. Well, it's very, very possible that right there did not happen. What could have happened was the principal got wind of it, went and saw for himself, and because the principal has probably always been a pencil neck, who's probably worked desk jobs his entire life and probably never even played sports, probably went ahead and jumped to the conclusion that this right here was cultural appropriation, when in reality it was not. It's something that football players do all the time, especially on day games, and a lot of times you will wear the colors of the team itself because, quite frankly, it's a way of showing pride in one's team. You've also, like I said before, you've got students of color there right there beside him who don't seem to care. You've got a black security guard who, quite frankly, told him spikes need to go up a little bit higher. I think the lawsuit in this situation is absolutely warranted, and I think we need to have more lawsuits like this anytime we get some stupid information or any type of information like this that is absolutely stupid. If you really and truly want to beat stupidity, this right here is how you actually do it. Once you start hitting somebody in the pocket, once somebody starts getting fired over the stupidity of their actions, then after a while you will get some form of change. But back to the principal himself. You see, sports does not, how do I say it, does not appeal to these types. It does not appeal to these left-wing types. Also, something else too, military service does not too. On the Gear Issue 33 channel, and of course we're going to start back posting this weekend. I've got a video coming out on the situation in Yemen and what it could eventually lead to. And the thing is this right here, I used to say this all the time, that the military, of course, they were trying to social justice warrior up and still are. The military does not appeal to the social justice warrior types. They would much rather burn down their own neighborhood and their own country rather than fight a war and possibly burn down another one. This is just who these people are. This is the way their minds work. In the case of this woke principal, or what we believe to be a woke principal, my theory is that this guy right here is just not used to sports. He's never played any sports, and he automatically assumed that the face paint simply meant that this said child was doing blackface and cultural appropriation, when clearly it was obviously not the case. Maybe if the principal actually knew about this, then quite frankly, if he actually did some information, did some actual research on this entire situation could have been avoided. But of course, it looks like he's got to pay out of his pocket. And of course, the school district may have to pay too. Now, granted, it is also California, it's California, and the courts, of course, typically tend to lean in favor of the wokes. But then again, this is also a situation where, if the money is right, this situation could become much, much larger. The thing is this right here. One of the problems that the wokes really and truly have is that they don't actually look into information. They don't actually look into history. I know somebody's probably going to accuse me of that in the near future, and obviously we're all ready for some form of fall and pick back up. You got to put your chin down, your hands up, you got to move forward. It's called learning. That's the way life works. You've got to learn in life. And obviously, this particular principal did not actually look into this situation diligently and did not actually think to himself, hey, look, maybe he's just wearing the colors of the team. Maybe that right there is the case. Maybe he's just, he's around a bunch of kids who, quite frankly, are black and they don't seem to mind about this. Maybe you could have asked the question, you guys okay with him wearing that face paint? Oh, hell yeah, he's my buddy, this, that. Okay. Like I said before, just let kids be kids. Don't be afraid to ask questions. You're the principal of the school. It's not like you walk up on them and they think you're some stranger or whatnot. They know who you are. All you got to do is just simply ask the kids or maybe ask parents, hey, man, you guys okay with that, man? Because the school's got this policy. Ask questions first before you go over and start accusing somebody of something. That right there is the real truth of the situation. The principal in this case was just flat out stupid, and well, now I guess his ass is about to be broke and jobless. And with that right there being said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and call it a day. I've got 2 videos coming out. It was supposed to be 3, but I decided to push one video back and make it more of an essay type format. It'll probably come out one day next week. It's going to cover a large array of issues, but it's basically going to be about the end result of DEI and what to expect as a result of diversity, equity, and inclusion. With that right there being said, guys, make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe, share the video. Please sign up in the comment section. I want to hear what you guys have got to say on this. Please give me your thoughts, and I'll see you guys later.